Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the One Nation Gamers Summer Circuit Feature Tournament number 4. Of course, today we're broadcasting Group B. I'm TJ, joined once again by Trump. And Trump, we're about to jump into the winners match. And both of these players had really impressive 3-0 victories in their first match. Who would you give it to as a prediction going into this next one?
On this one, I think I'm going to just go off of the merit of their lineups and ask me again after we do some banter filler as I get to think about it.
Okay. Well, it's Roger versus Strife Crow. Of course, Roger, we just saw him take out Weasel in a 3-0 victory with some really impressive play. Strife Crow, his games were a little bit tighter. He took out Dart 3-0, but there were some close calls, and his play didn't look to be as impressive as Rogers, but definitely just as methodical. So both these players, of course, are very well known in their respective regions and in the world to be fantastic players. So these were the two players that I had coming out of this group if I had to make predictions blindly, not even seeing their decks, just based off their merits. So it's not a surprise to see them both in the winners match.
Makes sense to me. Good job getting enough airtime there for me to think about things. So I think that Strife Crow is actually favored. Both lineups are pretty different. Both have only a handlock of similarities, but Strife Crow's lineup, Hunter, Paladin, and Warlock, I'm kind of curious, and I think Paladin is favored. It's close either way. And it depends on how you tech the Paladin, but with the Quartermaster version, possibly. So it's possible that Roger just doesn't find a win with the handlock. Past that, though, the Paladin is a good matchup against the Druid. What really doesn't want to happen, and which Scratchcrow managed to dodge the first time, was the Paladin Patron match.
Mm-hmm. It is tough. The new type of Paladin deck that I was talking about earlier is a little bit better. With double owl, double defender, you can block damage. You can buff your 2 attack creatures out of the 2 attack range with Defender Vargas. Double owl, you can deny card draw and or armor early on more consistently. So Trefco, though, running sort of the classic mid-range Paladin, the mid-range Paladin that we've all seen have success at high ends of ladder in past seasons, just sort of bringing it back right now, and it is normally considered to be pretty weak against Patron. So he, like you said, definitely wants to dodge that matchup. But we'll have to see. It 3-0 for both these players. They're both undefeated so far today. One of these guys has to lose, and of course, the winner of this match goes on to the playoff stage tomorrow. They'll be immediately seeded into the semifinals. I'll get word on who they are going to be playing against tomorrow, and in just a second, but they will automatically guarantee themselves $750 with the potential for even more than that.
Yep, this just in, by the way, for those of you who are curious about Roger's choice to silence the Arcane Golem, Roger has admitted it was a mistake and that he just woke up and is a little dizzy. But, I mean, if that's how he plays when he's dizzy, like those first 2 games, then man, everyone wants to be Roger.
Yeah, we were thinking it was some next level play to have an out, to maybe keep around the powder shredder in hopes of it popping a Doomsayer if he got really far behind. But alas, it was just a mistake. He's just waking up, just like we were just waking up. I think it's, what time is it? It's a weird time to just wake up for him, I think.
That's right, because I know I just woke up and I'm
oh wow,
quite a bit away from Roger, I imagine.
1 a.m. It's 1
Uh-huh.
a.m. in Taiwan, so that's a rough time to play a tournament. Having to wake up at midnight to play in a tournament is pretty crazy. So, I mean, I guess he's used to it. He plays in a lot of opens at this time, so I'm sure he adjusts his sleep schedule, knowing that a lot of opens happen in NA and EU. So, no stranger to it. Man, Strifecode's going to throw out the Hunter first. Gets a Huffer.
Oink oink. Strifegrow's got a good start, but it's going to rapidly fall off because none of the cards he has wants to be played on turn 3. Not even the Eaglehorn Bow, because it's only 6 damage. Whereas a minion has the capability of providing more than. Oh wow, are we going to see the Arcane Golem on 3? Strifecrow has got to consider it, and
He does have
that's
three
definitely what he's doing.
weapons.
I've seen Strifecrow enough to know his curious thinking face. He's like, oh, the Reynad told me that this isn't a 3-drop, but
Uh, I don't know. 99 times out of 100, I'd play Igor Bow in this situation.
I
The
mean,
one
it does
time I
make
wouldn't would
sense,
be when I'm
especially
busy.
since Strifecrow has so many weapons. But on the other hand, that Arcane Golem does have the upside that if it isn't dealt with, it has the potential to one deal more damage. It could deal 8 damage. This is one of the like few times it could. And in fact, it is going to do
It's
eight
true.
damage. Um, Even though it does 8 damage, it's not immediately clear that it's the better play over Eagle Horn Bow, just because there's so many weapons in his hand. Like Strifecrow needs at least 6 turns to use all of his weapon damage.
Yeah, and 6 turns, he might not even make it 6 turns, which is a lot of times the case here. And now he's going to have to think. Glaive Zuka plus hero power would probably be the most efficient, but he's still holding on to those Eagle Horn bows, which represent more damage than the Glaive Zuka. He could Eagle Horn bow Leper Gnome this turn, knowing that the Arcane Golem would get killed off next turn, so the Glaive Zuka buff wouldn't have a chance of lasting. And it looks like he really wants to get those Eagle Horn bows
I think
going
this
right
is
now.
play. I think this is close. You did definitely state the two plays that are in contention. The Glaive Zuka does do the same amount of damage as the Eagle Horn Bow right now, and the hero power basically does the same damage as Leper Gnome. I guess the big swinging point is the fact that Leper Gnome might do 4 damage instead of 2. So it looked like that the next turn also, which Strifecrow obviously is planning for, could have been a reasonable turn to play the Leper Gnome as well. I guess when you really think about it, if you go with the Glaive Zuka hero power, though, the next turn you kind of need to go Eagle Horn hero power, and then you push back the Leopard Gnome yet another turn. So, Hunter, not just all about hitting face. There's some thought to this.
Yep.
Being able to maximize, just get that extra like 2 damage in, has a very high chance of winning or losing the game. And speaking about Arcane Golem on turn 3, Strifecrow might have made an educated guess that this matchup could actually last exactly 6 turns. And by playing the Arcane Golem, he maximizes the chance that that deals another 4 damage, and he also gets the damage in with all of his weapons anyways. It's a tough calculation that you have to make to see like roughly 6 turns in advance, but might have been done.
Yeah. And he has to sort of just count his damage here, just to see. And I mean, if he attacks it with the Eagle Horn Bow, hero powers and Eagle Horn Bows again, then he's guaranteed to have 5 damage at least over the next 3 turns. Plus, he's got quick shot, so looks like he's going to go for the silence instead in the hero power. Realizes that he's going to have to utilize his mana most likely to play the weapons anyway.
Hmm. When you add up all the damage in Strifecrow's hand, if you count the weapons at full value, that's 6, 10, 13. And then using a hero power for the next 4 turns, 15, 17, 19, 21. So 21 looks like it's more than 13, but over 4 turns, you can expect the patron to gain about 8 armor, which is going to be 21. So quick napkin math is that this game will be very close.
Yeah. Shield Block's going to help it out a bit in the favor of Roger. It's going to go back up to 15 health, so effectively negating the last turn of damage from Strifecrow. And Strifecrow's really going to want a charger here to couple with Glaive Zuka at least at some point. Knife Juggler doesn't do much, just gets contested by the Gnomish Inventor that's still on the board.
Yep. This is going to be. Oof. Um, the problem is if you look out like far enough into the game. Okay, yeah. So he is going to use the Glaive Zuka and the hero power. That makes sense. When you look out far enough into the game, 4 turns away, you calculate that you have 21, and the opponent can get to 21 with just hero power. So you're inclined to always use hero power. So he plays the So he plays more on curve and makes sure to get that hero power in. Missing that 2 damage could cause him to lose the game if he were to play the Eagle Horn.
Hmm.
I was like briefly humoring the idea of using the Eagle Horn to clear off the Gnomish, but that's every single point of damage on the face looks like it's necessary now.
So a lot of combo pieces that are getting reduced. Strife Crow is going to start to be on the clock here. Next turn, with all these cards reduced and 9 men available, Roger's going to be able to play nearly his entire hand. Grim Patron, War Song, Cruel Taskmaster, and Frothing Berserker can all be played.
True enough, Strifecrow's in a pickle because it looks like he needs 3 turns to win, but he's not going to get 3 turns.
I think. So that's 5 damage plus 8 from patrons, which is 12. The Frothing Berserker would only deal
Oh, the armor
3
smith
damage.
though.
Yeah,
There were
that's
basically a
definitely the
few
play.
draws that Roger would have won the game with. Whirlwind. Actually, that might be lethal anyways. That looks like it's lethal.
Yeah. He's going to be able to attack with the Cruel Taskmaster as well, and the Frothing Berserker is going to gain 2 damage for each of these that are played, so it only needs to go up to 7 because he has 12 damage otherwise. So I think that's exactly what's on the board right now.
Yep.
And it is. Yeah, so with the Haunted Creeper played, that gave him enough. So Roger is going to take a game lead here. Going to go up 1-0 against Strife Crow. A little bit rough for Strife Crow. I mean, it can be nice to have weapons because it's guaranteed damage, but he just didn't have enough turns to use all of his weapons.
No, actually, just straight up, his hand was terrible, and
Yeah.
yet Strifecrow managed to put it into a point by like eking out that extra 1, 2, 3, 4 damage. Like, it's astounding to think about. Like, possibly Strifecrow over another Hunter player might have gotten in a whole extra. I mean, depending on the level of the Hunter player, he might have gotten in anywhere from an extra 2 to 8 damage, depending on how it was played. So close, and he had the quick shot. So with a draw, he might have been able to pull it together. But anyways, Roger gets the patron through. I suppose the only consolation prize is that Strifecrow doesn't have to send the paladin against the patron.
That is a very small consolation prize. But it could be a little bit of a benefit for him. His Paladin does line up pretty nicely against these other 2 decks. His Hunter also sort of lines up nicely. Maybe not so much against the Druid, but definitely against the Warlock. And Strefko, of course, does have the Demon Zoo, which doesn't line up as well against the Handlock, but definitely a strong deck against Druid most of the time. So looks like we are going to be jumping into game number 2 here. Let's see what decks these guys decided to go with. It is going to be the Zoo for Strifecrow, and Roger is going to throw out the Druid. So Strifecrow gets into a little bit of a favorable matchup.
Oh yeah, more than just a favorable matchup. This is one of the best ones in tournament lineups and tournament lineups versus tournament lineups. Zoo just swarms the board so much, and one of Druid's weaknesses is their inability to come back into the game. So what Druid needs is a proactively good start. So we're talking something like Coin Innervate Keeper. That's one of the ways that they win this matchup. But in this world, Roger doesn't have it.
Yeah, he does have the Innervate, but nothing to get out quickly just yet. Oh, double Doomguard, though, in the hand of Strifecrow. That's really not what you want to see. Unless he draws into a Void Caller, this is going to be tough for him to be able to save one of these Doomguards.
For sure. Strifecrow should be happy with what Roger's about to do, though. Which
Hero
I
power
presume
pass.
would be hero power. But Roger seems to be thinking of a different line. I could see a world where he coins Savage Roars here for Super Bad Claw, but hey, sometimes when you're Druid, you have to do Super Bad Claw. Was worth thinking about, I suppose.
Yeah. Also, he has to decide whether or not he wants to throw a hero power into the Haunted Creeper to maybe set up for a little bit of a better swipe down the line, but decides to just go phase because it's a little bit too hopeful to take that extra damage.
Yep. Speaking of hope, Striker has the option to break his own creeper. It's going to be weak against MC Tech, which no one's running. At least in this tournament, possibly. We don't know the entire deck list, but it seems rare. And you can just tap Voidwalker.
Saw Privet use the Ogre Brutes instead of Mind Control Techs in a
Yeah, if there's
debate
anyone who
yesterday.
I would expect to have MC Tech in their deck, it would probably be Privet. If he's
Yeah,
running
he's
Overbrute, who knows what he's running?
the king of 3 drops in Druid. I think he runs like 6 3 drops in his Druid deck, which is pretty nuts. Zombie Chow, that's a couple turns too late. He can swipe, coin, innervate, swipe hero power. Or he can coin, innervate Sylvanas. And I think he went with the Sylvanas here, which seems to contest the board a bit better. Usually it's better if you can afford to play the creatures to contest before you play the spells and use the spells as a sort of support if you have the option available to you. And he will be able to have the mana to swipe next turn, even with using the innervate. So looks like that's going to be the line of play.
Exactly. With so many minions from Strifecrow, a typical strategy from Zoo is to just ignore the Sylvanas and let the Sylvanas do her thing while you just hit face.
Mhm.
It is going to be pretty nice to block Sylvanas potentially twice with Voidwalkers.
Ooh, looks like Strifecrow is going to risk getting his. He might just go face. He
Oh,
pointed at the Sylvanas for a second, and then opted to attack face first, which is what you would do whether you're trading or going face, regardless, because you just want to cash in on the damage while you have it. And it looks like he is going to go ahead and trade here, so a lot of good targets to steal, and that is one of the
great one.
best.
Yeah, that's a major deviation in line of play because either the face or that was reasonable. This play plays around swipe a lot better, and the opponent does have swipe, so good on Strifecrow.
Yeah. Now Roger, with the innervate used and no wild growth, it's going to be tough for him to fit things in. Next turn, Strefko is most likely just going to slam a Doomguard, most likely discarding his other Doomguard. But at this point, it really doesn't matter because the game's probably not going to last long enough for him to be able to get both out anyway. So having to deal with a 5/7 that's going to deal 5 damage immediately, only being on 5 mana, is so tough to deal with. Especially since this turn, I mean, what can he do? He can.
Exactly. Looking at this from the Druid
Wow.
perspective, it's just a nightmare, and it's a wonder that how and you might look at this and wonder like, oh, how does Druid ever win? But it's exactly the case where you really want to wild growth into Keeper or innervate into Keeper. Once you start falling behind, it's very difficult to claw your way back, so you have to actively be ahead, and that's a difficult requirement, which explains why this matchup is one of the more favored lineups that goes against each other in tournament play.
Yeah. Such a weak turn. And now Stripe Girl, I mean, I would just want to slam that Doomguard. Because how does he deal with it? He had to
Yeah, I agree.
Savage Roar to clear off your um your Void Walker last turn.
Oh, he
Oh, and
managed
he
to
keeps
get
it!
not the Doom
Wow!
Guard and to fantastic. There's some hesitation to not play the Doom Guard just because you drew such a good card, the Imp Gang boss, but just the Void Walker wasn't very good, so that was like a freebie, and there's the chance that you get the other Doom Guard. Good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And only 5 mana. It seems like this game's been going on for a while, and we're only on turn 5 here for the Druid. I feel like I'm so used to them drawing Wild Growth that it feels weird seeing them sort of being behind in mana. And I just don't think there's any way out of this. He can't even clear off the Doomguard. Uh, well, that
Right.
doesn't seem like a play. You swipe it. What do you? He can swipe off. He can swipe the Void Tear and clear it off with the Zombie Chow, leaving 5 damage on the board, and he'll be at 6 health. And then all Strife Crow would need to be 1 damage, which we see he definitely has.
Yeah, this is just that quick math check. Oh, yeah, am I really dead? Can I really not do anything? Oh, it's way too early in the morning to play Hearthstone. But like you said, it's not in the morning for Roger. But yeah,
Well, it sort of is in the morning. It's nearing 2 a.m. for him, so it's the very wee hours of the morning or late at night for some people. And with second Doomguard, that's going to do it. Strifecrow is going to tie it up at 1-1, breaking our streak of 3-0s for the day. So I expected this matchup to be a little bit more evenly matched with these players, and it's going to be exactly that as we are going to start prepping for Game 3. And Strifecrow managing to find a win with the Zoo deck, that was pretty likely because Zoo is, I think we saw the statistics earlier where Zoo is slightly favored against Patron based off the statistics, and definitely favored against Druid.
right. So this becomes a bit interesting because now all the decks are different. Strife Paladin Hunter against Rogers Warlock Druid. Quick opinion is I think that Paladin is favored against both, and I think Hunter is favored against both. So I think Strife is looking pretty good at the moment, but again, these things can go either way.
Yep. Strifecrow throwing out the Paladin, and Roger throwing out the Druid once again.
This
A
is a
lot
major
better
tech
starting hand.
choice by, which is going to give him a huge benefit in this matchup. The Zombie Chow. Well, this matchup, first of all, is all about board control, and that Zombie Chow really provides the early game board control. You can trade it against the shielded mini bot in some worlds, and that's really good. Unfortunately, in this world, you can't trade it against the shielded mini bot because Strifecrow has the 2 plus the 1 from the muster. So comes down to swipe, basically.
Yeah. When both players have strong opening hands, I think the game is still very even. You can say that Druids have ramp tools and Paladins don't, but at the same time, Paladins have a lot of tools to trade really well into creatures that the Druid can throw out. They have equality to be able to get through the big stuff later on. They have Muster for Battle, which is so much value in the early game.
That they do.
This is a tough choice. I think you just go with the Zombie Chow, though.
Yeah, I agree.
Innervate Shade is... How are you going to deal with Shielded Minibot at that point? Whoa,
Right.
a Zombie Chow for Strifecrow as well.
Too bad he didn't get that the last turn.
I know,
That was
that's...
the dream.
Now it's a tough choice. So if either one gets traded in and leaves the Zombie Chow at 1 health, like he could Hero Power trade it in. Zombie Chow is weaker to Wrath, which is something to consider, but it also ruins the Wild Growth play if he has to Wrath.
Goes with the off-curve play of the Zombie Chow. It's also in the early game, so the weakness of giving health, which is not really a concern in this matchup, but a slight concern that factors in as well.
This early
One of the
game's
best
playing out.
times, one of the best times to play the muster when you have absolutely nothing else. So the swipe is really awkward. Roger is going to be very nervous on turn 4 if he doesn't get a swipe, because the threat of Quartermaster is what makes this matchup pretty good for Paladins.
Yeah,
And if it actually happens, then they usually win.
yeah. Even decks that don't run Quartermaster still threaten Quartermaster because you never know for sure. Sometimes you do know for sure if you watch the player play the deck multiple times, but you never know 100%. So that's why even decks that don't run Quartermaster, you still have to be really afraid of those 1/1s. Whoa,
Yep.
the Coin Innervate Emperor Thorsan coming out.
Bam! One of the reasons not to innervate out the shade is exactly so you can make this strong play on turn 3. There are some worlds where this is super awkward to deal with, namely if you don't have True Silver. But Strife Crow does have it, so rather easily dealt with.
It still is not the best turn for him. In a turn where he was expecting something smaller, where he could have maybe shielded Minibot and used his hero power, instead he develops a juice over, but still a reasonable play. And now he's got to be afraid of what Roger actually reduced in his hand. So he's definitely going to be keeping track of those reduced cards. He saw 4 being reduced, so he sees 1 played. He knows that the far left cards, or I guess, nope, still left from his perspective, are going to still be in the hand and reduced.
Right. Roger has managed to reduce such that a curve is pretty good. I can't it's going to be difficult to see anything other than exactly the 5 drop and then the 6 drop. The Sylvanas is... Oh, well, that's something. That's really good. That not only gets rid of the weapon, but also trades with the Loatheb. So
Draw
I
some
guess
cards.
that would be the card to see over Sylvanas.
Sylvanas is so easy to trade into right now. All he has to do if he plays Sylvanas is trade in the 1/1, trade in the Lotheb. It's pretty much the same um, net gain as the Harrison, except with Harrison you're drawing a card and getting rid of the True Silver. So
Yep, I'm surprised at the hesitation there. I suppose he's going for... He's thinking, oh, I might need this for Tyrion. Maybe I want to draw 3 cards with Muster. But definitely completely reasonable to reduce the 4/1 here.
ooh, Coghammer. That makes
That's a
things a
big
little
deal
bit
if it lands
interesting.
on the Lotheb. In fact, Strifecrow can rig the odds so that it does go on it.
Can rig it. Is it worth it though? Is it worth trading in that 1/1 to automatically get the Divine Shield on? There's also a couple other plays. I mean, he has Knife Juggler plus Muster for battle. Doesn't fit the curve, but he really doesn't have anything to play with Coghammer that fits the curve. Muster for battle would be the only thing, but then he's overriding one of the weapons.
Hmm. Looks like he is going down the path of guaranteed Divine Shield. Another interesting play that he probably considered was going on the curve and going mini bot juggler, well, juggler mini bot, and then guy.
Yep. And holds on to the Knife Juggler for that Knife Juggler and Muster for battle combo. Swipe is going to help a lot in this matchup. And
Oof,
that makes things
Sylvanas is good though.
problematic.
Very difficult to get rid of the mini bot. Really good to play the Sylvanas when 1, the opponent has a Divine Shield on play, or 2, the opponent has a Death Rattle on play. Guaranteed value unless silence, which Strifecrow doesn't have.
Yeah, he cannot trade in.
Yeah, it looks like Strifecrow, similar to the Zoo matchup, is going to try to minimize the value of Sylvanas by getting all these cheap guys first. If he... Oh, he didn't manage to hit Sylvanas. That's a big deal. One more try at it. Oof, no. And also didn't kill the Shade. The plan was to do 1 damage to Sylvanas and then trade in the mini-bot, but now it's a slight... Now he has to lose the 5/5. And, oh, he loses the
Oh,
mini-bot
man.
also.
This swipe
Oh,
is just going to just wreck him. Now, one thing is Roger doesn't have anything to really couple with the swipe. He could try and cycle the Wrath on the Knife Juggler and then swipe face, which I actually would have liked better.
no, I think it's fine to hold on to the Wrath. You have more than enough cards and good cards. Well, I
You could have put
guess...
him on a guaranteed next turn lethal if you had swiped face, because he would have been at 8, and he... Well, I guess it wouldn't have been guaranteed, but it would have been very close to being guaranteed.
Hmm. Right, given the no consecration. But Strifecrow
Yeah.
draws into it. It's going to be very tough for Strifecrow from here on out. The swipe was so devastating, and that particular Sylvanas steal was so devastating. And Roger does have... Oh, and he's calculating lethal. He's close. He has 8. But
Yeah.
even without, he's got this massive card advantage.
If he had cycled and swiped face.
Sure enough.
Yeah, it's still going to be game. Doesn't matter in the long run, but just a line of play to think about. And it looks like that is going to do it, as Roger does have the Keeper of the Grove in the hand to silence the Sludge Belcher, and exactly 9 damage on the board. And it looks like Roger is going to take the lead in the series, going up 2-1. He is going to be on match point. Keep in mind, guys, the winner of this match moves on to the playoff stage tomorrow, the semifinals. They'll guarantee themselves $750. They'll be one step closer to going to the grand finals at PAX, where they'll compete for a share of $25,000 and 230 World Championship points. Roger, again, he just needs to finish top 2 in this tournament to qualify for PAX, since he does have enough GEICO points to pass the second place GEICO point holder on, I believe it is EU. So he's getting closer, and Strifecro now on the ropes. But we talked about it earlier. You said the Paladin and Hunter are both decks that are really great against Handlock.
Yep. I haven't seen a BGH from Strifecro yet. It might actually be possible that I cut it, just because there's so few VGH targets, with Patron being such a dominant force. I'd be a little surprised, but not that surprised, because there are 2 Elder Peacekeepers and all the Paladin decks.
Yeah.
Maybe he feels he can get away with cutting it.
Mm-hmm.
Which would make the matchup a lot worse. Strifecro, though, with a pretty good curve.
Roger threw away everything. Did not like his hand, which is not what you want to have as a handlock going into the matchup blind, but they do have the ability to tap early on to improve the consistency of their draws. So it's not as important, but definitely can end up being a big deal.
For Strifecro, he only tosses the Wolf Rider. The Abusive Sergeant is... Well, it will get played. It's a little bit weak against Coil, but the nice thing is when you're going second, the opponent doesn't want to coil your Abusive Sergeant. He can go Scientist. Yeah, that's better in this case. You can get the guaranteed damage with the 2 Sergeants.
Roger does have the Owl to line up pretty nicely. Might still consider tapping, because next turn he could fit in Owl plus a Mortal Coil. If he feels okay with taking that 2 damage. But again,
in that case, it would be better to play the Owl and the next turn tap Coil. Now that I drew the Giant, though, I mean, anyone who's experienced in playing Handlock will know that it's a pipe dream to go for the tap-tap Giant strategy. It's usually you die by then if you were to do that. Roger takes the first step at it, and I'm a little surprised because that Scientist is a pretty good silence target. It is worth mentioning that Roger took a while to decide on that, so if Strifecro is paying attention, then he'll be like, that's probably a decision to play a 2-drop.
which is either Owl or Sunfury Protector.
Right. Alright, pressure rising. Will Roger blink here? Yes, he will. There's no way to get the Mountain Giant on 4 here. Oh, never mind.
Wow! It's all about calculated risks. This is bold. He does have Taunt Givers. He does have Dark Bomb. So once he gets that Molten Giant out, he does have ways to fight back on the board. But if this is a Huffer, well, Misha's just as scary. Because it can't be dealt with just a Dark Bomb.
Yep. Okay. Well, Roger, 2 options. One is to go with that play. Ugh. And the other was to do Watcher Sun Fury if he was scared for his life. So now it's Strifecro with the decision to push the Warlock down below 10. And that's probably a good call, since you can do some at 7.
It's a lot of damage.
Oh man, 5 actually.
5!
Correction.
So what does Roger do from here? No Moltens. He's pretty much... He can Ancient Watcher and Sun Fury Protector.
Yeah, I mean, he feels dead because any amount of quick shot or kill command kills him. But there's always the chance that the opponent doesn't have it, such as in this case. And It looks like the best that Strivecrew can do is to get through these taunts this turn, which will unfortunately return the Sun Fury, but that's not a big deal because Roger already had one. Big relief to Strivecrow. No Molten Giants were played.
Yeah. So you can basically say that they'd have to be top decked. Not that it would change his plan anyway, because he said he basically made the statement last turn that he has no regard for Molten Giants by going face. But wow, double secret. So Stripecrow has freezing and explosive.
Yep. For Roger, this is looking very grim. You can taunt and probably survive this turn, but in order to win this game as the handlock, you're looking for pretty much exactly all three pieces. You need taunt givers, which Roger has. You need heals, which he doesn't have, and you need molten giants, which he doesn't have. So with only one piece out of the three, it looks very grim. Not to mention he opened with a very risky gambit of tap tap giant, which tends to be too slow.
Whoa.
Yeah,
He
that's a
dark
surprise
bombed the
too.
face.
At this
That's
point,
crazy.
yeah, it's pretty crazy, but it doesn't matter, I want to say. And to some extent, like the only way you win is by racing.
Yeah.
Uh, Roger's about like 3 turns slow in the race, but theoretically, the dark bomb might have made a difference if he was like playing efficiently on curve every single turn.
Hmm. Yeah. He's going to realize that there is no way for him to win. No heals. And that's about the only thing that would save him because he can't even tap. So,
Yeah, this was one of those games where Roger took again, quote unquote, calculated risk, and this might be the first one which I've been so disagreeing upon. Uh, Tap Tap Giant, just if you play enough Hamlock games against Center, you're like, okay, it works like a very, very, very small amount of the time. But maybe Roger looked at his hand and was like, ah, his hand is trash. I can't win unless I
yeah.
take that risky play. Owl would have been the more standard play on two, and
Yep.
that would have contested the Mad Scientist and would have prevented, like, Mad Scientist got in for something like 6 damage, so it would have slowed the bleeding a lot.
All right, well, we're going to go to a game number 5 in the series. Roger has Handlock remaining, and Strifecrow has the mid-range Paladin remaining. So a very close matchup. Um, it's depends on, you said it earlier, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, how you sort of tech the Paladin. Double equality makes a huge difference because it allows you to push through. BGH,
That's
as you
right.
mentioned earlier, also makes a really big difference.
Yeah, BJ is so standard, but one of the, I guess, latest revelations is that there's not enough VGH targets out there. So perhaps you don't bring it. Especially in a deck like Paladin where you have two Alders. It almost seems inconceivable, but it's conceivable. And I know Strife Crow isn't the type of player to bring two equality. I've seen him play Paladin a lot mid range, and it's so inconsistent to have those two stuck in your hand.
Yeah, he's got a debate here whether or not he wants to keep the Iron Beak Owl, and I think he's waiting for the mulligans, but looks like not. Ah, did he? No, he didn't throw it away. He actually kept it. It just, with spectator mode, I think it just
Oh,
moves
right,
over
right,
slightly.
right.
Yeah. So,
A little surprised at the Shredder keep to some extent, keeping a 4 drop without any earlier cards. Strife Crow with gets the Chow. That's to some extent exciting, but to some extent not because the Chow doesn't accomplish much against this matchup.
it's something to play, and getting it out early is usually better anyway, so.
Yeah, hey, he curves into a potential 2 drop. Some moment of thought for Strife Crow because it is a possible weakness against Dark Bomb. You can just make a guy. Strife Crow chooses to take the more conservative approach. It doesn't look like this hand can burst the opponent down, and if you were to get closer to 10 health, you would probably be afraid to kill him anyway, so he's just going to go for the prolonged game. It's an interesting choice.
Shrivko is very protective of his jugglers in Paladin matchup. After watching him play Paladin a lot, he rarely ever plays Knife Juggler naked on turn 2 unless he's playing against a more aggressive deck or a deck that's going to pressure. Against control decks, he'll almost always play the Hero Power.
Hmm. Good info. Roger has to decide between 1 Dark Bomb, 2 Ancient Watcher, or 3 Coin Twilight Drake, and there are merits to all of them. Probably not Dark Bomb because the Chow is a minimal threat, and Coin Drake is more reasonable due to not having a giant in hand. Unfortunately for him, Strife Crow kept an owl.
Yes, he did. That's going to line up quite nicely with it. Shielded Minibot is pretty good too. It's resilient to Hellfire. It's resilient to AoEs.
Yeah, but it's really interesting to see that Strife Crow just pushes the button. This is one, like, I love pushing the button, but Strife Crow in this matchup, I think he's exceeded me in the love of pushing the button.
I mean, those things can get in for a lot of damage.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the Shielded Minibot looks completely reasonable there, and it's probably the play most people would make, just because it is resilient against Hellfire. But the guy is free.
Yes, it is. Keeping that card advantage. No turn 4 threat for Roger. So he's going to have to tap to dig for something and probably just throw out the Ancient Watcher. That's exactly what he's going to do. Going into turn 5, he does have Loatheb.
Yeah. Roger with a double Molten Giant hand, and Strife Crow with playing a Paladin deck which can't burst if it ever puts it in the range, puts Strife Crow in a difficult spot. Has to really think about how much damage to do. He doesn't know that Roger has the worst case scenario for him if he gets low, but even against just 1 Molten Giant, it looks like Strife Crow would struggle.
Should you buy Strife Crow's line of play? I wouldn't be surprised if he just shielded Minibot's hero powers here.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then it'll be interesting to see how much damage he pushes and whether or not he kills the Watcher. Makes sense to kill the Watcher. You're sacrificing a bunch of your guys, which would have died to Shadow Flame or Hellfire, and dealing damage to the face is too scary.
We'll see. Getting the cash in on the Zombie Chow and getting that out of the way is feels good too. Wow. So he attacks him with the owl, but holds
Very
off
interesting
on the
play.
other.
So that serves 2 purposes. 1, the Hellfire now self-kills the Ancient Watcher. 2, there's no real point to killing the Watcher with the Chow and the Guy, because the Shadow Flame would, after all, just kill itself anyways. Yeah,
well, that just seems like a better option here. If you Mortar Coil, you risk not picking up any sort of threat, and you sort of need to be proactive on the board. Hero power every single turn for Strife Crow. It's kind of funny, except for turn 1 when he played the Zombie Chow. He's managed to weave in a hero power on every turn.
including this one.
Including this one, yep. And I don't really see that changing.
He's playing this matchup really steadily, and the amount of mana he's used on hero powers since it's been every turn 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's been 10 mana spent on hero power so far, and you can see that if Strife Crow had spent that 10 mana on his actual cards, he would be rapidly out of a hand. But instead, by using these proxy warriors, he's able to last a lot longer. He still hasn't managed to draw into the... Oh, there we go. The Quartermaster isn't that great because it still dies to just a Hellfire or Shadow Flame, but Roger doesn't have any.
He can cash in hero power, Quartermaster, trade one of the dudes into the Ancient Watcher, hold on to the True Silver, and push a little bit of damage here, because now he's getting to the point where, with the damage that he has on board plus hand, he is threatening lethal. So he has 12, 14, plus the consecration. That's exactly 16 damage that he has. So if
Right.
Roger were to play Dr. Boom here, he'd be dead. So he has to find another way to do this turn, which is problematic. He can play anti-Keelbot and Dark Bomb down uh, one of these guys, which is looks like, yeah, that's going to be the play.
Yeah, Roger really doesn't want to play anti-Killbot, but Strivecrow has puppet mastered this game so well. There's everything has been so controlled. He's held back 10 mana, 12 mana worth of cards by using a hero power every single turn. And we
And
can see
now,
why Strivecrow rated some Inspire cards so highly.
and now, Strifecrow has the good old Paladin Burst combo, the 4 damage double consecration.
Yeah. Man, Roger with so many cards, but Strivecrow has controlled the Molten Giant so well that Roger really has a very limited set of options. There's nothing to taunt other than the Ancient Watcher he just drew, and just taunting one of those isn't good. You can play one big card, but like you said, that 4 burst damage from the Paladin is going to be just enough.
Exactly enough. If he and oh, this is really tough. If he plays Doctor Boom, he's dead. If he plays Ragnaros, 3 out of 5 times he's dead. If it hits a Divine Shield or the face, he's dead.
Yep,
If he plays
I think
Ancient
this play
Watcher
makes
into
sense.
yeah,
Owling the Tyrion seems essential, and you have 2 taunts, so you can taunt both of these. Perfect sense.
Doctor Boom.
This is a real David versus Goliath match where paying 2 mana for a Wisp seems quite a bit worse than drawing a card, but when you play your cards right, the cards that the Handlock draws aren't of that high quality, and some of them are unplayable. And due to the position that you jockey on the board, some of the cards that the Handlock drew are really good, like Dr. Boom and Ragnaros, but you aren't giving them time to play it.
So he's just going to trade in, probably play something besides Doctor Boom, because if he plays Doctor Boom, he doesn't have room for a hero power. And we know how much Strifecrow likes his hero power. Here we go. And he actually puts himself once again in a position where he kills his opponent if they don't taunt up. And now the only option that Roger has for taunting up is a Molten Giant and a Sun Fury Protector. He can also play Mountain Giant and Sun Fury Protector, which would probably be the better play because it would allow him to fit in a tap, but I think the tap is a little bit too dangerous at this point. Both will allow him to fit in the tap, but Mountain Giant's going to be harder to play as the game goes on, where Molten Giants will be easier to play as the game goes on.
Roger's got to be feeling so frustrated right now. Like, oh, I can't play these Moltens. I'm so close. Stripecrow keeps puppeting me into the perfect hole. What Roger needed was some kind of area of effect, and that would have been a good one to draw also. I wonder if Roger might have... there's been a recent move to cut area of effect down to only 2 instead of the usual 3, or a really long time ago even 4. And that might be a reason why we aren't seeing it.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be game. He's got 5, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so with Tyrion double consecrate, that is going to be enough damage to push through. Like Tyrion into the Sludge Belcher, double consecrate, throw everything into the face. 16 damage if I counted correctly.
Very elegantly played by Strifecrow.
Yeah.
This actually didn't maximize damage, but is that still lethal? I think so.
Yeah. Yep. So that just goes to show how much experience Strifecrow has in the matchup, and he's actually going to go for the exact lethal with the juggle to the face. So
Just to
uh,
get that guy in on the last turn, honestly.
yeah, just to up his hero power usage by one additional dude. So Strifecrow is going to take the series. That means Strifecrow secures his spot in the semifinals tomorrow. So he guarantees himself $750, and he just has to win two more matches, two best of sevens actually, because semifinals plus onward are best of sevens to qualify for the grand finals at PAX. He joins Soundstorm and Chalky. So right off the bat, the first three players that qualify for the semifinals are a really impressive lineup.
That's right. Both of the invites. Man, I just want to once again highlight how astounding it is that Strafkro spent either 18 or 20 mana on hero powers that game.
Yeah,
That that was that's the way to play Paladin in that matchup.
yeah, you can afford to take it slow, just getting the extra power on the board. You said the David versus Goliath. It feels weird spending 2 mana for a Wisp while your opponent's drawing a card, but it's you can trade up a lot, and it just worked out for him. He applies just enough pressure to where he threatens lethal, but not enough to where he has to worry about Molten Giant. So very well played. You can tell he definitely has a lot of experience with that matchup, and looking forward to see who he's going to be up against tomorrow. I think he's going to be playing against Silent Storm. He plays against the player that took second in the group. No, he'll be playing against Chalky. So Strifecrow versus Chalky will be the matchup tomorrow. Soundstorm, since he took first in Group A, he'll play the player that took second in this group. So Soundstorm will be playing the winner of the final elimination match. And it looks like we are going to go to a quick break before we jump into the losers matchup. So we are going to losers matchup between Weasel and Dart will be the next matchup that we'll be broadcasting. So just a few minute break, guys. Don't go anywhere. The more Summer Circuit action continues right after this.